Hi friends, I'm holding the single richest natural source of the last essential micronutrient ever discovered in human nutrition, selenium. Populations living in selenium-poor soils show higher rates of certain cancers, such as liver, colon, and prostate, compared to people living in selenium-repleted regions. And literally, for many people, eating just one Brazil nut a week, and some every 2 weeks, can meet and even exceed the essential requirements for the day. So I'm really fed up about hearing that supplements are expensive pee, because eating a Brazil nut is just one way to supplement a person's diet with selenium. Cancer is personal for me. I've been to 4 funerals this year. 2 were my colleagues. Yeah, they passed. They spent their lives healing others, yet cancer still took them. So I wish I could go back 27 years ago and tell them what we know now. Cancer is an immune dysregulation disease. A strong, well-trained immune system can recognize and attack cancer cells and can also prevent them from growing. But most people, including medical doctors, we realize that too late, because this work needs to begin years, often at least a decade, before the first symptom or signs present. And of course, many blame bad genes. Yet genetically identical twins can have completely different cancer outcomes. And cancer in children, that's pretty rare. Yet you will likely know someone with cancer, because over 2 million Americans are diagnosed every year with a new cancer. Now we know that being deficient in just one single essential nutrient can mess up your genes. And did you know that it is estimated that at least 10% of Americans have at least one essential nutrient deficiency? And then there are so many more who are insufficient. And now we know that when you're nutrient insufficient or deficient, you will mess up the guardians of your health, your immune system. So frankly, if you aren't eating enough of essential nutrients, then that's where the right supplements, whether you do it in food or in pills, or sometimes even powders, in the right amounts can be beneficial. There are 30 essential micronutrients that keep you alive and healthy. Selenium is just one of them. In 1957, the same year that the Asian flu pandemic took the lives of over 1 million people, and Dr. Seuss published The Cat in the Hat, selenium was discovered. Believe it or not, selenium was originally thought to be toxic. However, scientists discovered that tiny amounts of selenium actually prevented liver necrosis or liver rot and other deficiency diseases in animals. And this discovery officially established selenium as an essential trace mineral for humans. And actually, selenium is a universal biological requirement across all mammals. And that includes your favorite furry friends, cats and dogs. Selenium is required in very small amounts, yet critical for immune strength, antioxidant defense, and cellular protection. These are all vital for cancer prevention. And in humans, top whole food sources include these Brazil nuts, the most concentrated source in nature, where again, just 1 or 2 provides more than a day's requirement. Other sources include whole grains, beans and lentils, mushrooms, sunflower seeds, and certain seafoods depending on the regional mineral content. So when you're eating a diet full of white flour and white rice, you're not getting good sources of selenium. They aren't selenium free, but the levels are so reduced that they're not meaningful sources. That means if your diet is full of bread, noodles, rice and rice products, basically refined grains and junk food, your selenium intake can drop significantly. And ask yourself, is there selenium in your diet? Some nutrition research suggests that as many as 500,000 to 1 billion people worldwide may be affected by insufficient selenium levels. So that means roughly 1 in 8 to 1 in 16 people globally might be selenium deficient. And that really depends on their dietary patterns, as well as how much selenium is in the soil. Now, deficiency is especially common in regions where soil are low in selenium. So parts of China, Eastern Europe, and rural Africa are at higher risk, especially if your diet is heavily dependent upon local crops grown in depleted soil. And on top of that, the whole world is getting obese. Obesity increases a person's cancer risk, and there is a clear relationship between obesity and selenium deficiency. But it's not a single, simple, one-way connection. It's really bi-directional. It's a cycle driven by inflammation, by diet quality, and by increased physiological demand for selenium. So obesity creates a chronic inflammatory state that then dramatically increases oxidative stress, which means that the body burns through selenium faster because selenium is required to produce antioxidant enzymes like glutathione peroxidase. So someone who is obese may appear to have normal blood selenium levels, yet they may functionally be operating at a relative deficiency or insufficiency because their tissue requires much more selenium to neutralize oxidative damage. Low selenium then worsens inflammation, increases insulin resistance, impairs mitochondrial function, and encourages additional fat storage, creating a cycle where inflammation and deficiency feed each other. And as I mentioned, diet plays a major role too. People with obesity often consume fewer selenium-rich foods, such as whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, mushrooms, and certain fish. Basically, the sure way to get obese is to rely more on refined grains with low selenium and lots of added fats. And that's really the definition of the majority of ultra-processed foods that contain very little to almost zero selenium. This pattern shows up in studies where individuals with metabolic syndrome, fatty liver, and type 2 diabetes frequently have lower selenium status or reduced glutathione peroxidase activity. And selenium is also essential for your thyroid hormone to convert T4 to active T3. And low selenium can also subtly slow metabolism and contribute to weight gain or difficulty losing fat. Now, I'm not advocating for megadosing because on the other hand, excess selenium, that's not beneficial either. High intake actually increases oxidative stress as well as diabetes risk. So the goal is maintaining an optimal level rather than high or low levels. But we need to recognize that overall obesity raises selenium requirements, and reducing selenium intake and lowering selenium effectiveness, while low selenium further drives metabolic dysfunction, making the link biologically strong and clinically relevant. So when you eat foods to supply selenium, it'll be in its natural form. You allow your body to regulate absorption more safely than taking a pill or powder for supplements. But if you don't get selenium in your food, there's nothing wrong with getting it from a pill or powder. Selenium's biological role is to power the glutathione peroxidase, one of the body's master antioxidant enzymes responsible for neutralizing free radicals, reducing inflammation, and preventing the DNA damage that sets the stage for cancer development. It also supports immune intelligence by helping T cells and natural killer cells recognize and eliminate abnormal or early cancer cells. Selenium regulates, again, your thyroid hormone. And because the thyroid signaling controls your metabolism, pretty much every immune cell is dependent upon metabolism. Deficiency leads to sluggish immunity, chronic inflammation, and impaired repair mechanisms. And population studies consistently show that low selenium regions have higher rates of certain cancers and inflammatory diseases. And it's not necessarily because selenium cures cancer, but because it improves your body's resilience against that cellular damage. Unfortunately, after discovering selenium, we haven't had any more breakthroughs in micronutrients, even though we all know that there are plenty of compounds that give us longevity and health that are not officially recognized as essential. So why isn't Big Pharma investing in it? Because there's no money. You can't really patent a Brazil nut, nor can you patent a micronutrient that's in so many different foods. It's not going to be a multi-million-dollar drug. So there's no interest. And many public medical professionals, they think all supplements are a waste of money or simply expensive pee. The thing is, you need to know how to use supplements. Some supplements are extremely helpful, especially if you're not getting them in your food. Data shows that 70% of what people buy in the supermarket is ultra-processed. And over 50% of what people think they're cooking at home that's healthy is ultra-processed. Ultra-processed food generally don't have the essential micronutrients that we need in the amounts that we need to stay healthy. Hence, the importance of supplements to fill in those nutritional gaps. So when it comes to cancer defense, it just takes one micronutrient to be deficient for a person to increase the risk of cancer. It's just like everything else in life. It is so much easier preventing it than to take care of a problem after it happens. Now, we in healthcare, we use supplements all the time to replace the role of essential nutrients in food. We call it fancy names like total parental nutrition or peripheral parental nutrition or supplemental shakes or tube feeds. Go to any American hospital and I'm sure all of these will be available on their formulary. But when it comes to people outside of the hospital who wants to supplement on their own, there are a lot of professionals who discourage that, even a simple random multivitamin. And if I could have a conversation with those folks, I would refer them to go look at the studies done by Harvard, especially when it comes to dementia, that shows just taking one daily multivitamin can significantly reduce a person's dementia risk. But a lot of people, for some reason, they think that eating food in our landscape is enough. It's as if they don't see the fast food chains and the lines down the street. Yeah, and you would assume that people in the medical industry would actually eat better. But unfortunately, have you seen what they eat? Pretty much normal food, just like the rest of society. And none of us ever thought it would be a problem until the problem occurs. And I didn't think it was a problem. And so I started looking around me and what was happening to young, apparently healthy people getting astronomical rates of cancer. And during residency, I had a co-resident who only ate French fries with salt and pepper. Like literally, that would be all she would eat for lunch. And that was every day. I spent 3 years with her. She would have a big plate of French fries from the cafeteria sprinkled with salt and pepper. And then I would see a nephrology attending. He loved French fries too, and he would always eat them with mayonnaise. And he's European from Germany. I don't know if that's a European thing to eat French fries with mayo. And so for 3 years, I watched these people eat French fries every day. You know, we spent literally 110 hours together a week. And you would notice what people eat too if you spend that much time with anyone. Well, my French fry friend, she's became one of my best friends in life. And she's a 2-time breast cancer survivor. And I bet you never really thought about fries as increasing your risk of cancer, right? French fries contribute to cancer risk through several intersecting biochemical pathways, all rooted in how they're made, what they're made of, and what happens inside your body after you eat them. First, a high temperature frying process actually produces acrylamide, a well-established carcinogenic compound formed when starchy foods like potatoes are heated above 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Acrylamide binds to DNA. It increases oxidative stress and creates mutations that can initiate cancer development. Now, it would be ridiculous of me to claim that French fries literally cause your cancer. I've eaten fries as well. When you eat fries every single day, you're pretty much limiting what you're getting in your food, right? You're eating nutritionally deficient food. You're not getting all your essential micronutrients. So you're pouring in the poison, and then at the same time, you're missing the equipment to detox that poison. Does that sound like a recipe for success? And let's not mention the oil that the fry is cooked in. I'm sure that, lots of people now, they don't like seed oils, so they want to cook it in lard or beef tallow. Well, that's just going to increase your risk of heart disease. And if you get heart disease and die of a heart attack, you won't need to worry about cancer, right? So I'm not a fan of beef tallow or lard, but most of the time fries are cooked in seed oils, soybean, corn, canola, peanut, or a combination of all of them. They are rich in an unstable omega-6 fat that oxidizes just in air. And then you add heat, you make it more unstable. And then you use it, like in restaurant fryers. Well, that generates just more toxic lipid oxidation byproducts, such as acrolein, 4-HNE, ALEs, and trans fats, all of which damage your mitochondria, impair cell repair, and it inflames the gut lining. So how many times that oil is reused to fry your French fry matters. Do you know that number? I don't know. That's why it's important to avoid restaurant deep fried foods, because you really don't know how many times they reuse that oil. But if you're going to deep fry yourself, make sure you turn on that exhaust fan. Because when you inhale all that oil, that's toxic oil. That will affect your health when you just inhale it. You don't even have to swallow. These molecular burdens, they weaken our immune surveillance. They make it harder for the immune system to detect and remove precancerous cells. Fries also create a metabolic environment that helps cancer grow. They deliver a rapid surge of energy from their starch and their fat, and it almost has no fiber. And then when you eat starch and fat together, you're just creating a combination to help you spike your sugar and keep it higher, raise your insulin, and the higher your insulin, the more fat you pack on. And then high insulin stimulates pathways like mTOR and IGF-1, which accelerates cellular proliferation and inhibits apoptosis, two hallmarks of cancer biology. Furthermore, fries are calorie dense, super delicious, salty, easy to overeat. They promote weight gain and visceral fat accumulation, which increases estrogen production. It raises inflammatory cytokines and produces oxidative stress that feeds tumor growth. And that salt and that crunch, that's sure rewarding to your brain. All that dopamine is going off when you eat your fries. That encourages habitual overeating and exposing oneself to carcinogenic compounds. So fries have lots of reasons to promote cancer growth, but exposing your body to DNA damaging cells, oxidized fats, inflammatory signals, and metabolic disruptions that collectively raise your risk is not a one-day thing. It happens over years. Plus, you're not eating essential micronutrients that can activate your immune system to detox. And on top of that, did you know that you already have thousands of microscopic mutated cancer cells in your body? But if they don't grow, you don't get cancer. That's why we all have to have strong immune systems every day. Just as a nation's military must stay vigilant every single day to repel threats, your immune system has to remain constantly alert to protect you from all the threats in your environment. And there are many specialized cells, like natural killer cells, macrophages, T cells, whose job is literally to patrol for those foreign enemies. Now, this system works silently 24/7. If it works well, you don't feel it, you don't notice it, but it's always there. And when this surveillance is strong, you stay healthy. And these microscopic cancers, they stay microscopic and they go away. The other key is really to help it out by not feeding the cancer.
Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
So have you ever accidentally put a Band-Aid on that's too tight and then your finger turns purple and then you wonder why that hurts, right? You know what happens? You're choking off the blood supply, and blood is needed for your entire body, every single cell to survive. It may not grow tall, but it needs to repair. And this includes your immune cells as well as cancer cells. So the reason why cancer grows at an astronomical rate because they hijacked literally the blood supply, the nutrient sources from your normal tissue. They steal nutrition and they literally behave like parasites. And believe it or not, there are foods that can prevent them from doing this, such as berries. Take your pick, blueberries, blackberries, cranberries. They contain anthocyanins that suppress VEGF, the molecule tumors release to get more blood vessels. Now, the Japanese, they drink a lot of tea, right? Green tea or matcha, ever heard of that? Ever wonder why there's some of the longest living people on earth? Green tea, especially matcha, they inhibit abnormal vessels from growing to feed cancers. Now, matcha is special because you're actually drinking your vegetables and consuming the whole leaf. This includes the fiber and all the nutrients attached to that fiber. So this gives you hundreds of compounds that we don't fully understand and that are missing when you steep your tea and not eat that leaf. Many of us don't realize that every bite of these foods changes your blood within hours, not days, not weeks, literally hours. Eat a cup of blueberries today, and by tonight, your endothelial function is different. Your blood pressure and heart rate can improve, and definitely it will change your microbiome. Now, did you know that bacteria also can cause cancer? cancer, or it can improve your chances of survival with the help of chemotherapy. Take Akkermansia mucinophilia. Patients who actually had this bacteria responded dramatically better to chemotherapy compared to patients who didn't have it. Now, in animal models, mice who weren't responding to chemotherapy, who then got a transfer of Akkermansia from responders, all of a sudden, those mice began responding to chemotherapy. The immune system wakes up with the right stimuli. So how do you get some Akkermansia? Naturally, because you really can't get it in a supplement. Well, foods that contain its foods, like pomegranates with elagotannins, or cranberries with oligosaccharides, or even Concord grapes, feed them. And when you don't eat these foods, what are you feeding your gut microbiome? Other stuff, right? And then your gut microbiome will always make byproducts. Some of these will be harmful. Some of these cause more inflammation. So they can be a source of health or a source of inflammation. And we're not even counting all the air pollution, the smog, the smoking. We create a lot of pollution on our own too, just our normal metabolism. And do you know the organ that makes the most inflammation, that contributes to your inflammatory state every day? That's fat tissue, specifically visceral fat tissue. That's a fat that is inside and surrounding your liver and your intestines like frosting. And the more visceral fat you have, the more of a gut you're going to get, a beer belly, as if you're pregnant. But that's not with a person, that's just with your fat. But before you get a ginormous amount of visceral fat, you get fatty liver. And together, they cause a massive amount of chronic inflammation that fuels cancer. So in long-term studies of normal weight women, those with higher visceral fat, even though they looked healthy, they could be skinny on the outside, they had a 3-fold increase in breast cancer risk. Now, visceral fat is not passive. It's not just for insulation. It literally leaks inflammatory molecules in your bloodstream all day long. Imagine packing a suitcase neatly, everything perfectly. Now imagine stuffing 20 bottles of lotion between those layers of clothes that you just packed, and in midair, it literally all explodes, right? The lotions leak around everything. That is visceral fat surrounding your gut. And when the visceral fat outgrows the blood supply, the middle is starving for nutrients and oxygen. That's when it starts releasing SOS molecules, those inflammatory molecules, and then your immune cells rush in and they release more inflammatory cytokines. Then this inflammation doesn't get contained just in your visceral fat, it starts spreading elsewhere in your body. So how do you get rid of visceral fat? Well, there are many ways, but whole foods, they can help you not only get rid of that, but help you get nutrients that can feed your immune system. Let's take cruciferous vegetables. It activates NRF2, the detox master switch. Alliums boost glutathione. Citrus lowers oxidative stress. Legumes reduce IGF-1. Berries protect your DNA. Vinegar stabilizes glucose. And then you have resistant starch when you eat whole plant foods. You can make that by cooling potatoes, rice, and pasta. Those things feed bacteria overnight that then create good molecules like butyrate, compounds that help your cells repair, like colon cells repair, to reduce their inflammation, to then cause cancer cells to go away. If you ever wonder why people in Okinawa, Japan, rural Africa, or other longevity zones have low cancer rates, then pay attention to what I'm about to say next. Because this is a missing link most people just never think about. Their food. All we see is the junk food that feed tourists. But everyday people who live there, that is not what they're eating. They don't eat the jiggly pancakes or the ice cream from the vending machines. Those foods are deficient in essential micronutrients. There are over 30 essential micronutrients. And when you're deficient or insufficient, you're creating a biological environment that increases your risk of cancer because there's so much energy required for DNA repair, immune surveillance, antioxidant defense, and just normal cell division to help you repair. Now, while deficiency alone does not cause cancer in a direct one-step manner, low levels of critical vitamins and minerals, they remove the body's protective systems and make cancer far more likely to develop over time. Now, among the micronutrients most strongly linked to an increased cancer risk is vitamin D. That stands out at the top, partially because your body should be able to make it yourself, right? Well, when you're deficient or when you're insufficient, that impairs immune regulation, it reduces anti-inflammatory pathways, it weakens your body's ability to detect and destroy early abnormal cells. Then there's folate, vitamin B9. When you're deficient or insufficient, you actually disrupt your DNA synthesis and methylation. And this leads to DNA breaks and mutations that not only causes neural tube defects in newborn babies, but it promotes promotes cancer of the colon, breast, blood cancers, and other tissues. How about vitamin B12? As well as vitamin B6, they actually work closely together with folate in the same methylation and DNA repair network. So deficiencies in these B complex vitamins, it increases homocysteine, oxidative stress, and DNA instability. Now, these mechanisms strongly are tied to tumor initiation. And then we have minerals. I mentioned selenium. There are other minerals in which if you're insufficient or deficient, plays an equally important role. So selenium, remember, reduces glutathione peroxidase activity. That helps you detox. So that increases oxidative DNA damage. It weakens your immune surveillance. And this combination leads to higher rates of certain cancers in low selenium regions worldwide. But what about zinc? There's 2 billion people deficient in zinc. When you're deficient or insufficient, that interferes with DNA repair enzymes. It increases oxidative stress. It disrupts apoptosis, a process of killing damaged cells, and weakens immunity, all of which elevates your risk of cancer. How about iodine? A boatload of people are iodine deficient, and this leads to hormonal imbalances, chronic proliferative signaling in the thyroid, contributing to thyroid nodules and raising the risk of thyroid cancer over time. And what about magnesium? So many people are insufficient, and then you have deficiency. That reduces genomic stability, disrupts mitochondrial function, impairs your insulin sensitivity. It creates a metabolic environment that increases inflammation and promotes cancer-promoting signaling. Vitamin A deficiency weakens epithelial integrity, the first line of defense against cancers in your lungs, in your gut, in your skin. It raises your susceptibility of your tissues to environmental toxins. There are other micronutrients with evidence linking deficiency or insufficiency to increased cancer risk, including vitamin C, which protects DNA through antioxidant activity, vitamin E, which prevents lipid oxidation and cellular membrane damage, vitamin K, which participates in regulating cell growth signals, and iron, where both deficiency and excess can fuel oxidative stress and DNA injury. Now, the big picture is that cancer often begins when one DNA is damaged, and then that replicates and accumulates faster than the body can take care of it. Now, when your immune surveillance weakens, this is what happens. Micronutrients help to prevent that. They are biochemical tools required for repair processes. And when several are chronically low, common pattern of modern diets, the protective immune system fails and the long silent process of cancer development begins to accelerate faster and faster. You literally are what you eat. Foods can prevent cancer, or they can fuel them to grow faster, or maybe make the next generation cancer treatments more effective. So this means your diet is not just about preventing cancer, it's about supporting your internal environment from your own cells to your microbiome on this microscopic scale to fight this microscopic war. Most of this is invisible, it's abstract. But it's really about feeding and nourishing your immune system, which includes your microbiome, because they communicate together. And when you eat micronutrient-rich whole plants, you don't just reduce your visceral fat or to lower inflammation. You could be eating literally anti-cancer polyphenols that cannot be recreated in supplements. But like I mentioned earlier, supplements aren't just expensive pee. If you use them correctly and intelligently, like supplementing vitamin D if you don't have enough, B12 if you're over 50, magnesium, omega-3s, and acetylcysteine, quercetin, certain mushroom extracts like cordyceps, they could be crucial when your diet lacks these nutrients because you're not eating the right foods. That's why every day I fill my meals with berries, cruciferous vegetables, legumes, citrus fruits, mushrooms, leafy greens, whole grains. And then if I choose to eat plain starch like potatoes or rice, I generally prefer them cooled first. Then I decorate these with garlics and onions, chili peppers, and vinegar. I drink matcha or a green tea. All these support the gut microbiome with fiber-rich foods. And then I keep added fats low. And movement propels all your metabolism, slow to sleep. This strengthens your internal environment intentionally. And when you choose foods that support your immune system, the cells that line your gut and your mouth, your endothelium, your gut microbiome and microbiome on your skin, your metabolism, they're all trying to help you prevent cancer. And all we're doing is preparing our immune system for the fight to help protect you every day. If you want to learn more about those protective foods, watch the next video.